Sammy Spider's First Sukkot by Sylvia Rouss. Up, above, up, a book of directions, down, below. Sammy Spider was sitting next to an open window inside the Shapiro's home looking for bright colored leaves on the big tree outside. A busy squirrel gathering nuts on the ground below stopped to glance at the birds chirping in the branches high above. Above, below. The squirrel scampered up the tree and down the other side. Up the tree, down the other side. Suddenly, Sammy heard a loud banging noise. Josh Shapiro was holding two wooden beams while his father hammered them together. "Mother," called Sammy, "what are you making?" Mrs. Spider crawled down the web to the window below. "That's a sukkah," she answered. Each fall, the Shapiros build a hut for the fall harvest, holiday of Sukkot, like the one used by Jewish farmers long ago. "Can we celebrate Sukkot too?" asked Sammy. "Silly little spider," replied Mrs. Spider. "Spiders don't celebrate Sukkot. Spiders spin webs." Sammy crawled outside through the open window to get a closer look. "Please be careful," warned Mrs. Spiders, "and stay out of the way." Sammy perched on the windowsill and watched. Mrs. Shapiro came outside carrying a large cloth. She held them up while Josh and his father attached the beams to make the sukkah walls. Then Mr. Shapiro climbed up the ladder and placed wooden slats across the top of the sukkah. Josh handed his father tree branches to cover the slats. Sammy crawled inside the sukkah. Above him, he was perched to see the blue sky. Below him, Josh was helping his mother carry a table and chairs inside the sukkah. Sammy wished he could build a sukkah, but remembered his mother's words. "Silly little spider. Spiders don't celebrate Sukkot. Spiders spin webs." Josh ran into the house and returned with a large shopping bag. He emptied it onto the table. Sammy saw bright red apples, green pears, bunches of purple grapes. Mrs. Shapiro cut pieces of string for Josh to tie around the fruit. Mr. Shapiro moved the ladder inside the sukkah so he could attach the fruit to the branches of the roof. Watching from above, Sammy wanted to join the fun. He came down on a strand of webbing and crawled onto an apple. The apple swung back and forth. Sammy giggled. Josh dashed into the house and returned with paper, crayons, and tape. Sammy watched him make a sign, "Welcome to our sukkah." Josh said he wrote the words. He's talking to me, thought Sammy, but then he remembered, spiders don't celebrate Sukkah, spiders spin webs. Josh taped the sign inside the sukkah. Sammy scurried back to the windowsill. Mrs. Spider came outside to look for Sammy. Just then, the window slammed shut. "Oh no," she cried. "Where will we stay until we can get back into the house?" "Inside the sukkah," exclaimed Sammy. Mrs. Spider followed Sammy up to the top of the sukkah. "Let's spin a web below the branches," she suggested. Mrs. Spider agreed. The sun was settling when the Shapiros came back to the sukkah with candlesticks, a kiddush cup, and a tray of food. Sammy watched them recite the blessings over their meal. When they finished, they cleared the table and carried the empty plates back inside the house. "Now would be a good time for us to go back indoors," suggested Mrs. Spider. but the stars are so beautiful. Can we sleep inside the sukkah?" pleaded Sammy. "All right," agreed Mrs. Spider. She helped Sammy snuggle into the web. Soon they were fast asleep under the twinkling stars. The next morning, Josh came outside to the sukkah. Mother, what is Josh carrying?" whispered Sammy. "A yellow fruit called an etrog," explained Mrs. Spider. "What's the three branches are called a lulav. Together they remind us of growing plants." Sammy slid down the silky strands and crawled between the branches of the lulav. He smelled the etrog. It smelled sweet. Mr. Shapiro handed the lulav and the etrog to Josh. "You say the blessings and shake in all directions to show God is everywhere," he explained. "North, south, east, west, up, down." Sammy looked around him. Inside the sukkah, he was surrounded by beautiful branches and tasty fruit. Outside, the sun was shining on the big trees with the colorful leaves. Above were blue skies and white puffy clouds. Below, Josh and his family were reciting blessings for the harvest holiday of Sukkot. Sammy looked up and saw his mother smiling down on him. "Yes, God is everywhere," said little Sammy.